That story, let's reflect on the promises made on youth unemployment during last year's SONA with entrepreneur Thembeka Magwaza. Thembeka, a very good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
A very warm Durban evening to you, Gwena.
Thank you so much. Let's start there. I mean, as we look ahead to the president's speech tomorrow, a lot of people are saying that along the years we've had promises, but is it time now to talk about implementation and delivery? What are you looking forward to most from the president's speech, particularly as far as the issues of youth and employment or unemployment?
Sure, of course, Gwena. I mean, every year or every other, when the SONA is presented, we always look forward to hearing some solutions, right, from our president, from the head of state. And it seems like every year it's promise after promise. And I think the most pressing issues, I think, where entrepreneurs are concerned would obviously be load shedding, we need some real answers where that is concerned. But the other concern then comes through youth unemployment, right? And I really want to hear some tangible solutions. I think for me, youth employment or unemployment thereof and entrepreneurship really go hand in hand because, for example, let's take unemployed graduates, right? So graduates, I believe, or if you're in an institution of higher learning, you should be being encouraged and skilled and trained in being able to create employment for yourself. So having the skill or having the knowledge rather, without the skillful knowledge to actually turn that into a viable business for yourself and turning you also into an employer of other youth people, I think that's where maybe one of the elements in our education is lacking. So that we can be able to combat unemployment. So I'm looking to see if the president is going to make any correlations between how graduates are trained as opposed to what entrepreneurship can do for the employment and unemployment rates in South Africa, and obviously to see how government is going to partner with the youth in order to either create jobs or empower them to be employers and employees within themselves. But
is SONA the right platform, though, to address those things? And the reason I'm saying this, Thembeka, is that over the years, president after president, they use SONA to either talk to us about what they've achieved and make promises. And in this instance, many would even say that if you listen to January 8 statement and SONA, there's never really much of a difference in that instance. But is this the right platform for the president to address those kind of issues?
What other platform could they be, right? Because we need to look at where we are, right? Because that's the state of the nation. Right, so we need to look at where we are currently, and then we need to look at what are some of the things that we're going to put in place in order to move forward. Right, so where best then the state of the nation, that as a nation, how do we move forward from here as young people, as young unemployed people, as young entrepreneurs, etc. Because Gwena, if we want to look at the health of a country, we need to look at the health of its youth, because that's what's the country's going to look like in a number of years' time, And so if we want to see what the country is going to look like, let's really delve into the different factors and different elements that affect and effect the youth, so that we can be sure that whether it's this ruling party or any other party that comes into power or any other presidential candidate for that matter, we can be sure that there is a blueprint that we're all working towards or on top of. And I think also, Gwena, there's a large issue of uncertainty amongst the youth, and we are uncertain of the future, uncertain of what are the tangible solutions that government is going to put in place that, number one, ensures me as the youth person at this point, and number two, ensures other people, that are coming up after us. So this is, I believe, the correct platform, because that assures us, firstly, of where we are, and we need to be realistic about where we are, right? And so it assures us about where we are, firstly, and what is going to be the state of our nation in the next year, 2, 4 years, and into the future.
So with that said, I mean, what specifically would you like the president to hear? He spoke about creating 2 million more jobs for young people by 2029, and those are promises. But how should he put it to bring, I guess, confidence to people tomorrow, to young people, to say, okay, we've heard of the promises, but now let's talk the processes of implementation going forward?
Sure. And one of the ways that I think is to really engage big business, name names. I would have loved to have seen at the SONA tomorrow that government has gone to engage with big business A, B, C, and D. Right? And all of those big businesses are going to partner with government to give jobs that are this kind and this kind and this kind and this kind. Just some kind of solidification of the promises, that have been made. Firstly, and then we look at government, right? So in the government space, how is government going to create jobs? I would like to hear in exactly these industries. I would like to hear in exactly these job denominations with this kind of skill that is required, with this kind of experience level that is required, so that I, as a youth person who's unemployed sitting at home, can already start allocating myself, right, into these different categories. And then I think number 3, which is the biggest one and what I spoke about initially, is really speaking towards entrepreneurship where the youth is concerned, because there are a lot of problems in South Africa. I mean, obviously, load shedding, as I've expressed, is one of them. And there are a lot of youth people or young people that have answers and solutions. And that's exactly what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is creating value out of nothing. So I would like to actually hear that there are actual centers that can train the youth in order to think in these ways, to think in these patterns, to be able to commodify and to economize whatever it is that they know, right? I mean, I've been engaged a lot in the knowledge economy, that whatever it is that you know, whatever it is you're able to do and that you're able to transfer, you can economize that. You can turn that into an industry, and you can be able to create employment for yourself and, of course, employment for others. So for me, those are the 3 tangible things. It's either a very direct contribution or engagement, rather, with business, with big business, or B, government itself. How are they going to planning on creating jobs? And I think C is, how are we going to incite and encourage the youth to participate in entrepreneurship?
Projects like the presidential employment stimulus, have they worked? Do they work, or should we look into things like that? I mean, as much as that was a project in response to the COVID-19 pandemic or the effects thereof, would something like that work going forward in creating those opportunities, particularly for young people?
In ideas phase, that it's a beautiful and it's a wonderful idea. But I think the execution of it, I'm losing this word. I'm wanting to say the want or the desire or the drive to actually, have the execution afterwards. I think that's where it's lacking, because in ideas phase, yes, I think it would be a great idea, but the thing is, I don't know if the will, I think that was the word I was looking for, right? The will, yes, the will to actually execute afterwards is where it has been lacking with our, ruling parties up till this point, and I think going forward as well. And I think I would really like to hear that, to hear a bigger will to execute, and also obviously strategy to execute going forward.
So now, if you look at the president and some of the promises he's made, I mean, we know that issue of unemployment is quite a bigger issue, not only focusing or rather affecting the youth only, but affects all South Africans. The president at one point spoke about that government is not necessarily, it's not government's job really to create jobs. You touched on the issue of big business. Does this then speak to, I guess, maybe some sort of a collaboration between government and big business to create those opportunities for young people in order to, I guess, rescue the economy, as it were?
Because the economy is in trouble, isn't it? It really does need a lot of rescuing. And I think also, maybe at a small tangent, but I think very related to this, is just the participation of youth. Right? And I spoke a little bit before about the youth just not being unsure, rather, of their future. I think there's a definite need for youth to be involved in governance a lot, so as to know what are the plans and what are the execution plans. And with the youth actively involved in what government is doing, and yes, big industry being involved in what is actually happening. Because I think the youth really needs to be empowered into knowing, what can I do? Yes, I think he's correct in that respect, that it's not really the government's job to create employment, but I think the government's job is to form the linkages and as well as empower. So if we're able to form linkages between the youth and big business by government agency, and also to empower the youth and for them to be able to know that these are the actual plans that government has, and this is the way that you can access big business, and this is the way that you can bring proposals or look for employment or slot yourself accordingly. So for example, big business is always looking for people that are experienced in certain regards or learned in certain regards, and sometimes you find people really applying for jobs that they are not really are qualified for. But you'll find that there are jobs that people are qualified for. So being able to plot yourself accordingly. I think government needs to have a huge role in employing the agency of big business, and as well as empowering youth to know that how can I access that big, shiny company up on the hill that is too scary or it's too daunting, for me. So definitely the government can be that agency in order to not have the burden on their own shoulders to create jobs going forward.
Just a final question or point, Thembeka. There's always a question of entrepreneurs also, as young people, need to create opportunities for themselves, create spaces for themselves. How much do you think support youth need? How much does the youth need in order to be able to do those things by themselves without, I guess, the support of government and big business, if it's not there?
Definitely. I think I lost you there a little bit at the end, Gwena, but I think I did get the bulk of your question. And yes, definitely, as I've been mentioning, that entrepreneurship, I believe, is such a huge answer to the economic crisis that we are currently facing in the country. And without the youth's involvement, and really tangible involvement, and really aggressive involvement in entrepreneurship, I don't think we're going to have a very bright future. Because, I mean, even if we just look in the political landscape, the age gap that exists between, those that are in leadership and the youth. And also we look even in industry, pretty much these big industries are going to be obsolete. We're looking at digitization, we're looking at fourth IR, and we're looking at industries that the youth can really get involved in and can really spearhead. So the youth needs to be encouraged, and I really encourage the youth to really be involved, especially in these wonderful new niche kind of industries, that speaks about, the Internet of Things and digitization, all sorts of beautiful revolutions that are going on, because that, I think, is one of the major ways that the youth can be able to, number one, employ themselves, and number two, create employment for others. And also, I think with the current entrepreneurs that are in existence, it really is such a big responsibility for governments to be able to support those entrepreneurs. I mean, there's a myriad of ways that the government can be able to support. But I think one of them is just, if I could just think of something from the top of my head, it's the really daunting and mundane tender application process, that young people have to go through in order to be able to access whatever opportunities, particularly opportunities in government, right? So those opportunities in government need to be more accessible. There needs to be more digital options to access these opportunities, and also just lots of options to access opportunity, even in big business, even in way of subcontracting. So for example, if there is a big business or big contractor and they do have a lot of work, to be able to be encouraged to sublet that to SMMEs, so that they build their portfolio, so that they build their credibility, so that they're able to become strong entrepreneurs in the future that are going to employ a lot of young people.
Thembeka, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming through to speak to us. Appreciate your time and your insight. Entrepreneur